How's life over there are you in Toronto in Canada?
Toronto, Canada. It is so cold. I can't
Okay.
believe how cold it is. And it actually caught me off guard because yesterday wasn't bad, even though we had like light snow. So
Hmm.
I was in like because I work from home, so sometimes you get used to the warmth and you only go outside in bursts. So
Hmm.
I went out to walk the dog and I kind of looked outside. I was like, it's sunny, but it looks cold. So I had like a sweater on and the jacket. And I was like,
Uh-huh.
wow, I should have brought out the winter jacket. It is cold.
Well, I was born in Brantford, Ontario, but I was raised
Okay.
properly in Georgetown, which is actually not so far from where you
Mm.
are. I was raised
I,
in Georgetown, Ontario.
I do a lot of my shopping in Georgetown because I used to have a few friends out there. So sometimes I'd go to the Walmart there and then just meet up with them and then I'd go home. So yeah, I'm very familiar with Georgetown.
We moved there when I was 4. So I've basically done all of my education and childhood until I left when I was about 18 to go to university in Nova Scotia. But yeah, no, I was Georgetown girl, born and raised. So well, not
Oh
born, but
wow.
raised. Yeah.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, it's I think it's one of those cities, towns that is, at least to me, it doesn't seem like well known. So when you meet someone from there, they talk so very positively about it, and then you realize, yeah, I've been to this place, I've been to that place, the hospital that's there. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, a friend of mine from high school, she's a nurse at that hospital, and her husband is a firefighter in town. So a lot of kids that I went to high school with, or just any school, they've stayed on in town and married other people from town, and now they're raising their kids in town. So it seems to be I'm kind of the anomaly, I think, in that I've left, in that I left and I just haven't gone back. So,
Well, you
but
have to like kind of spread your wings and fly, right?
well, I mean, a lot of the kids I went to high school with, if they went to university, they stayed in Ontario, whereas I went to Nova Scotia. So right away, I was gone. And then after I finished school in Nova Scotia, I did a 4-year program in 3 years at St. Francis Xavier in Antigonish, Nova Scotia. And then I was on a plane and I went to Poland, and I was there for 2 years teaching English. And then I was back in Canada. I did my master's degree at the University of Windsor, just across the river from Detroit. So I did a master's program. And then as soon as I was done with that, I was back on a plane to China. And then I moved to Hong Kong. And then I moved back to Poland. And then from Poland, I moved to England like 5 years, 6 years ago now. Yeah, and in England, I've stayed. So I just, I mean, I love Canada and I love Georgetown. I even really love Toronto. But I just seem to have just the travel bug. I love to travel, but yeah, I don't know. I've spent more than half my life now outside Canada, but I still am Canadian 100%.
Would you ever consider like coming back?
100%. Yeah, it's just that my kids are quite small. Well, not quite small. I have an 18-year-old and a 16-year-old. So they're settled into their education, they're looking for work. So I feel like to uproot them out of this right now is a big mistake. They're at a really critical point in their life, and they're doing well at school, they're doing well with their friend groups. So I feel like once they're kind of launched a little bit and mom is once again free to get on a plane and go anywhere she wants, I might land up back in Canada. Yeah, it might happen yet.
Yeah, yeah, that would be really good. And like you mentioned, like your family, and I know that one of the things that you're looking to discuss today was like your family now that after I think you shared with me with the ending of a relationship. So why don't you take us through the beginning? Like, how was that relationship, and ultimately, why did it end?
Well, I the relationship that we're talking about, the one that I left sort of a year and a half ago, the one that turned abusive, actually wasn't my husband. My husband, the father of my children, was actually somebody that I met in Poland when I lived in Poland. So when I lived in Poland for about 18 years, it was with him. I got married. We bought a flat, and we had two boys. And then when the marriage kind of broke up, he stayed in Poland, but I moved to England, where I began a new relationship with an English man. Um, and that is the relationship that I left a year and a half ago. That's the relationship that turned quite abusive. He's a toxic person. He's 100% a narcissistic person, and I brought my older son with me to England to go to college, while my younger son stayed in Poland with my ex-husband. He goes to private school out there. So my son and I were living in this abusive relationship. And it's one of these situations where, I had a lot, as you can sort of see, I have a lot of education behind me. Have a lot of life experience behind me. I had a whole marriage behind me. And then you meet these people who are just so good at sort of getting you to fall in love with an illusion. And you don't until you meet a narcissistic personality, you're not prepared for a narcissistic personality. I had truly never met anyone like him before, and I was utterly unprepared for the reality of being in a relationship with a toxic personality. So I got a crash course, unfortunately.
How did you think that impacted your life looking back on the situation?
Terribly, horribly. When I ended it, and it's a surprise that I did end it, because most of these relationships end with the narcissist kind of getting everything they need from you in terms of supply or attention or positive energy or negative attention, whatever it is they want from you. And once they kind of have sucked you dry, drained you, they scan around for the next source of supply, which is what they need to keep themselves going. And then once they have that secured, they discard you. They kind of throw you on the rubbish heap, and they're off merrily in a new relationship. But I'm the one who ended things with him. And part of me still can't quite believe it, because it felt like the most impossible thing in the world to do was end this relationship. And that's the side of emotional and psychological abuse, more so than physical, that people don't talk about, is how it completely demolishes you as a person. How someone like me, with all of my accomplishments and all of my travels and all of my professional successes, was within just a couple of years completely destroyed by this person who said they loved me. And it just changes you completely as a person. And even after I left, I found the strength and I walked away and I took my son and we moved cities and we started from zero. And I'm reclaiming my writing and I'm starting a new business and I'm making friends and so on and so on. I am not the person that I was before in terms of my lightheartedness or my sense of I don't trust people as easily as I used to. I used to be very open to new experiences and people, and now I'm a little bit more whoa, And I think that anybody who leaves an abusive relationship, I think these are the permanent results of that abusive relationship, and you can move beyond them, and you can get a lot of yourself back. But I think that when you've been completely demoralized and destroyed as a person by someone who says they love you, I think it's a really long recovery process. And I know I'm still in recovery now, even though I think I'm doing actually very, very well. So this is the kind of thing that can change you for good. It really can.
I think some people neglect that, right? Like they think like once they break up, they can just move on, right? Like some people when they break up, they're like, okay, Johnny, who's been messaging me all this time, I'm gonna go over to
Mm,
his house because they say the best way to get over someone is to get under someone, right? Jokingly, of
mm,
course. I'm not saying that for people to do that, but I know that people do, right? Like people say that, okay, my bedroom is cold because I'm not with this person anymore. Let me go warm it up in ways that are very unhealthy. And I think taking the time to understand how this relationship has impacted you, not only maybe financially, maybe not mentally, but emotionally as well, right? Because regardless of how bad it became, there's probably a point in the relationship where both parties actually loved each other, or
mm.
they may have had strong enough feelings. And then for people to move on so quickly and then just push it on the other person saying that, okay, you know what, all the issues was that person's fault. I challenge that sometimes and ask the person, okay, as bad as it was, I know I've been in emotionally manipulative, abusive relationships. There's a point where I look back on some of those relationships and I said, aha, that was the indicator. That was the fork in the road that I could have said, I think maybe I need a pivot and step
Mhm.
away from this, or at least do a check in with the person, or I can continue down that path. Do you think a lot of people have that same mentality where when they're in a reflective perspective now, they can look back and say, okay, this is when something didn't seem right, but I maybe didn't hone in on it, or maybe I ignored it altogether?
Oh, for sure. And I think this is one of the things that's quite unique about narcissistic abuse, is that it, in the beginning, this person is your dream partner. And there's a reason for this. It's called the love bombing stage of the narcissistic abuse cycle, where they absolutely have to make you fall in love with them. And what they do is something called mirroring. So if you say, "Oh, my dream idea of a vacation is to go to Greece," they'll say, "Oh my God, my dream vacation place is Greece too. That's so amazing. Oh my God." And if you say, "I really prefer red wine to white wine," "Oh, no way. Yeah, I love red wine too." And then, "I'd love to have two kids." "Oh my God, two kids. Yeah, two is my perfect number." And suddenly you find yourself thinking, "I am so in sync with this person. Like, I have never met someone where everything lines up so much." And in hindsight, knowing what I know now, which was that that was all fake to kind of suck me in and get me where he wanted me, um, there is nobody on the planet that you are 100% in sync with. This person doesn't exist. The only person you're 100% in sync with is you. So, in a strange way, it's like you kind of fall in love with yourself because this person is reflecting back the best of you, all your desires, your dreams, your accomplishments, your wants, your fantasies. And suddenly you're all you can think is, this is just so meant to be. And then they start to say stuff like, "This really feels destined. Like, this really feels like, the stars are all aligned and I finally found you and I've been looking for you my entire life." And again, in retrospect, looking back on it, that's another red flag because that's um, giving the relationship a status and intimacy that has been rushed. And it's been rushed because they haven't told you the truth about themselves. They've told you the truth about you because everything you've said they've agreed with, but you don't actually know anything about them, not really. And so, um, in with narcissists, everything's sort of on fast forward, everything's rushed. I mean, it's not unusual to hear they'll tell you they love you in the first week or two after meeting you, or they want to move in with you immediately, or they want to get you pregnant like now. Let's just, and you're so swept up in this whole, "Oh, I've met my soulmate," that you find yourself agreeing to the rush. And there's also this fear that if I let them get away, I'm never going to meet anybody this in sync with me ever again. So the whole beginning of the relationship is such a whirlwind. And what I can honestly tell people is, and I'm a romance writer. This is what I do is I write romance. Um, I know it can seem attractive to think, oh, star-crossed lovers, no, this is so amazing, and oh, my soulmate. But in real life, um, true, healthy, legitimate, honest relationships take time to grow and develop. You get to know each other over time, and you see each other in different settings, and you have different opinions on things, different likes, different dreams, different preferences, and all these things are healthy and normal. If you've met somebody who's like the carbon copy of you, and they're pushing you and they're saying they love you immediately, this is such a warning sign, but it's not one that gets talked about a lot, because I think this whole um, pushing the big romance thing is especially pushed on women. Like, I think we as women, not so much the generate, like I'm 53, so I was still raised on the whole generational belief that um, your soulmate is out there, and true love is a fairy tale, and the great loves and the great romances, those movies of the 80s and 90s, the big declaration. And you don't fall in love with a big declaration, you fall in love with a bunch of little day-to-day things about a person. And so if you're with somebody who is rushing you, big declaration, claims you're fated, take a step back and just slow things down. And that is something that I have learned the hard way, because the whole thing is, once you're totally in love with them, and once you've moved in with them, and in my case I brought my son, I got on the plane, I moved countries, and I came here for him, I brought my son. Well, now they've got you where they want you, so now they can start to be who they truly are, which is where we call the unmasking of the narcissist. The mask starts to slip, and you start to see the true person behind this perfect facade they have created for you. But now there's no need to keep up the facade, because, well, you know, they've got you. They've got you. And this is where things start to change as well.
Sometimes when I speak to women specifically about their relationships and when they've been either in a narcissistic relationship or maybe a codependent one, many times they will share that the person told them exactly what they wanted to hear their entire life, because they went their entire life without ever hearing it. So they would say things like, you know what, you're very attractive, you're very beautiful, all these things that a lot of people would want to hear, because maybe growing up they were told that they're ugly, they were told that they're dumb, they were told all these things that were maybe negative in tone and negative in context. But now they
Mm-hmm.
have someone who they find attractive enough that is telling them everything they wanted to hear. And then they begin to realize that they kind of attracted this person because they wanted someone to treat them well. And when you mention the romance part, I can just imagine some of these guys using it as like a playbook to seduce some of these women, right? Saying that, okay, women want to be treated this way, they want to hear this, they want to hear that. In your experiences, not only maybe on a personal level, but in your work,
Mm-hmm.
do you find that to be true, where there's people out there that they have such a desire for attention and validation that they find it in so many of the wrong places?
Well, it's kind of interesting, because if we're talking about the narcissist, they're the one who actually needs validation. They're the one who's actually really empty inside as a person, and they don't like themselves, and they're not strong people, and um, they they only feel good about themselves if they can make someone fall in love with them. It's the strangest sort of headspace that they occupy, where they only feel valued and validated if somebody's in love with them. The problem, the the sort of narcissistic collapse begins in their head, because they know that they've made someone fall in love with something that's not real. So, on the one hand, they feel validated because this person totally adores me. But on the other hand, they're thinking, I don't feel good at all because they don't adore me at all. They adore this person I've pretended to be. And this is where they start to devalue the partner because they think it's like there's a point where it flips in their head and they don't think, I feel so good that this person's so in love with me. What they think is, this person's so stupid to have fallen in love with me. And I was faking the whole thing. I was, like you said, I was telling them what they wanted to hear. I mean, I just agreed with every single stupid thing that came out of their mouth, and they fell in love with me. This person's an idiot. So then they start to devalue you. And that's sort of the second phase of the narcissistic abuse cycle. From love bombing to devaluation is a very short trip, but it's a meaningful switch as well. But if we're talking about my romance writing, because I write romance and it's contemporary romance, and it's something that when I kind of got out of this relationship and I was thinking, because I stopped writing while I was in the relationship. First of all, he completely sabotaged me having any independent money or income. Financial abuse is part and parcel of, I think, all kinds of abuse, especially narcissistic abuse. So when I finally left, and I was thinking, like, do I want to start writing romance again? Because I haven't done it for a while and I've lost a lot of my core audience. And besides, I don't really believe in love anymore. Like, this relationship has really kind of screwed it up for me. Um, and then when I decided to start doing it again, I decided that I enjoyed it and I like writing romance and it's how I really express myself. And I do still believe in love and I do still believe in honest, open communication in relationships. And I do still believe in people wanting to be open and transparent with each other. So I thought, okay, I'll go back to romance writing. So then I got asked a few hard questions about that. And I thought they were very good questions. I was on a few podcasts, and the hosts were saying, well, after having been through what you've been through, how can you, in good conscience, sort of contribute to this whole fairy tale romance thing that you're now saying is part of the love bombing thing? And I thought that was a really fair question. But my answer is that I don't write that kind of romance. I write really like hard, realistic romance. My couples don't just meet and fall in love and it's star-crossed and everything's perfect. They work really hard to become partners and they work really hard on communication and mutual respect and bringing their baggage to the relationship and setting it down in front of the person and saying, this is me, and being open and honest about it. And I've written 32 books, and every single relationship in every one of those 32 books, not one is the traditional Disney fairy tale thing. Not one. Every couple that I've ever written has really, their relationship is hard won. They've worked at it, they've earned it. And because I write series, like books 1 to 5, or a couple of series or books 1 to 8, you see the couple from book 1 all the way through to book 8. So you actually see their relationship develop and grow, and there's conflict and there are things to be overcome. So you actually are part of the relationship from beginning to end. So it's not like you see them in one book and they meet and they figure it out and they get the happy ending at the end. No, you'll see in the next book that they have trouble getting pregnant.